welcome back to Kenshi. I'll dispense with the usual introductory paragraph. If you're watching at this point, I'm fairly certain you're caught up with the series or familiar enough with the game to know what's what. I'll keep it short. Home, hub, crew, greetings, ruins, lore, money. Crumblejohn and Shrike have been training at home for long enough now to be considered low-level rookies. In a surprising turn of events, Beep isn't totally useless with his fists anymore. He's still bad, let's just make that clear. But his ability to dodge is rising, and he's consistently able to utilize the first martial arts technique, the palm strike, albeit with the help of his clothing bonuses. As you level up martial arts in Kenshi, you'll gain access to more and more combat techniques the more skilled you are. It's a relatively short list, but there's some fun stuff in there, like spin kicks and flying knee strikes. This is an attribute unique to martial arts. No other combat discipline gets access to new abilities with time. Our house is starting to resemble less of a makeshift camp and more of a training dojo at this point. What with all the sparring mats and training dummies? It's like a low-rent Ultimate Fighter house. We're currently gearing up for a second trade run. The plan is to stock up on pearlware with the proceeds from the last outing, offload it and hang, then use those profits to buy food and additional characters. We're then going to use that momentum to strike out in another direction, probably up to the northwest. We're pretty flush with cats at this point, so much so that I'm able to hit up 2 separate hive villages to load up on goods. Yeah, we're not fucking around this time. The last trip was just a trial run. This time, we're moving in bulk. Little riskier though, seeing as we're not very liquid at the moment. Better hope we don't get asked for a bribe. Wanna hear a joke? Says Lip. An Alkranite, a slaver, and a Shek walk into a bar. So, how does the joke finish? That was the joke.
Oh my God,
wow.
Shut up.
On the way out of Hiver territory, one of their caravans stops our group to chat.
Don't go into the mists, No Hive. The mists are cursed. Cursed! You go in, you never come back out. Unless you have a hive lantern with you.
Dude, we've made that trip like 2 separate times now. I think Lip would see right through this little charade. Better feign interest than politely decline. We want to maintain a good trade relationship with these guys after all. Let's let them down gently. Sorry, we're not interested.
You'll regret not buying our lantern from us, human. I'll give you a good price, 2,500 cats.
Now is a good time to mention that Shrike had one of these in her inventory when we found her, so we know it's a bunch of superstitious bunk. The estimated value the game gives this item is only a measly 50 cats. Listen, seriously, I don't even have that much money.
You only get one chance to buy the Lantern of Radiance. Otherwise, you can never go to the mists, ever. This is a special item, it's unique.
Wow, that is a pretty devious troll. The devs are really reaching through the screen with this one. I told you, I don't have enough money.
No more discount for you, 2,500 cats, final offer.
Dude, take the hint already, jeez. Is that what it feels like to be on the opposite end of that tactic? I think Lip just got a taste of his own medicine. On our way east, we're stopped in the Holy Lands by some paladins. Oh man, everybody just wants a piece of us today. Surrender your beasts, brother. The Holy Lord Phoenix himself, blessed be his name, needs recruits for Akran's crusade. The darkness must be cleansed from their impure blood to serve a higher cause. They, already serve Akran. Under me. And you think you know better than the holy priests of the clergy? Of course not. But I need my slave to help me spread the word of Akran. Then go forth and spread the word, brother. Your beast will give you good leverage. Gotta be humble around these authoritative types. Really prostrate yourself. Slick moves, Crumblejohn. I guess skimming through the notes in that library was good for something practical after all. A little while later, Lip attempts a similar strategy at Alkran's shield and is a little less successful. You see, this is why you respect your elders, Lip. We dodge a couple skimmers on the way to hang, but we're moving during the day, so the way's mostly clear. Before long, we're getting liquid again at the bar. It seems to consistently take us about half a day to make this journey, as it's nightfall again when we arrive. In the morning, we move the rest of our luxury goods and start shopping for potential recruits. The first gal who catches our eye is Ridley, a fellow adventurer.
Ah, new face. Fancy a drink?
What's the catch?
No catch. Just looking to swap stories. I've been trekking the northeastern dunes for the past 6 months. Had some bad luck with those damn marauders for the past few weeks, though.
Same here, I suppose.
You traveling alone? Beats hanging around these crusty old townships, don't you think? Where are you lot heading out next anyways?
That's a little slice of life on the road right there. Relationships of convenience, safety in numbers, pooling resources. In that sort of way, I think Crumblejohn feels like he's known Ridley, or someone like her whole damn life. She seems to know the area well enough, so she's hired. Based on how much food we've got saved up, I'd say we can afford to hire another party member. In the spirit of being economic, I opt to hire 2 party members who eat half as much. Hugh and Fumin are a Hive soldier and a Hive prince, respectively. Hugh has a slightly higher health pool and gets bonuses to melee attack and toughness at the expense of a lot of technical skills. Fumin, on the other hand, is a mite more dexterous and excels at intellectual tasks. The Hivers' biological caste system is interesting. If we're operating on the theory that all the goofy fauna on this world are transplants designed by ancient human bioengineers, the construction of the Hiver society could be a pretty big smoking gun. It can't be a coincidence that another compartmentalized race just so happens to inhabit the same planet as a human society with their own taxonomy of variant races, right? I've heard of convergent evolution, but does that really apply to organisms that evolved on an alien exoplanet thousands of light years from Earth? Not to mention the fact that this is like a human bioengineering effort, we didn't evolve that way. So that one's sort of up in the air, considering we haven't really been able to study extraterrestrial life in the real world to an extent that could prove or disprove that. Well, unless you consider the fact that just last month, a group of ex-US intelligence and military personnel were involved in a congressional hearing regarding the fact that our government has maybe been covering up the existence of aliens.
Confirmation that UAPs are real came to me in January of 2015 when I was serving as the commander of the Navy Meteorology and Oceanography Command.
And one of these guys is responsible for declassifying the FLIR, Gimbal, and Go Fast videos from way back when. They're pretty consistent with their stories and seem generally well put together and educated.
Luis Elizondo spent 20 years running military intelligence operations worldwide.
Imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly at 13,000 miles an hour, that it can evade radar, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space. And oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet still can defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity. That's precisely what we're seeing.
In the hearing, they claim that not only does the government have access to alien materials and biologics, but also that there might be an international extraterrestrial arms race underway, where various world governments are all trying to reverse engineer this stuff.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
This on top of the fact that they all maintain that they were made to sign some kind of government non-disclosure agreement.
I signed documentation 3 years ago that restricts my ability to discuss specifically crash retrievals.
Holy shit. That's some perception of reality altering information right there. Happy holidays, everybody. Jeez, this whole bit sort of dates this video. And yeah, I am kind of sorry that I'm showing some lengthy clips here, but this is not the kind of information I felt comfortable just spouting off without substantiating. If I didn't do that, I kind of feel like I'm being some kind of schizo-posting maniac. I suppose I might still sound that way, but whatever. You'll also notice that I used a bunch of footage of Luis Elizondo here, and that's because he fielded a majority of the questions during this Q&A. I think most of the panel figured out early on that he was probably the most knowledgeable about this kind of stuff, given that he worked with, government programs designed to look into this stuff. But anyway, seriously, this whole thing is on YouTube. Crack open a Chili Boy, skip right over anybody asking questions that sounds like an idiot, or don't, depending on your tolerance for cringe, and that is a recipe for a roller coaster of an evening.
Do any of you ever come across reports from people that claim to have firsthand experiences with these entities, whatever they might be, or these aircraft, and then as a result, whether or not they're religious, find that these things will automatically disappear? Lou?
Ma'am,
What? But whatever you do, for God's sakes, do not look at the live chat. You will lose brain cells. I know because I did, and I can feel my neural pathways burning out like candles. So to get back on topic, yeah, I probably could answer whether or not convergent evolution works on a galactic or universal scale, but I'd have to send a letter to my local representative of the cabal of shadowy secretive government goons, whose unknown goals probably include obfuscating this information from the public. I hope they get back to me soon.
Hold on, wait, I've got some questions for him!
Hugh and Fumin are pretty quiet at this point, so it's a little hard to get a read on their personality. But based on where they were when we found them, it's safe to assume that they're both members of the United Cities serf class, possibly even ex-slaves. We have enough money left over to equip our new squad members with low-quality gear. I didn't have combat roles picked out for them though, so they'll have to fall into them as we find more gear. It was at this point in my journey through the game that I think I really started to grasp the combat fundamentals a bit better, at least to the point where I can make informed observations and decisions about weapon classes and damage types. Yeah, all that stuff was always visible in the stat screens, but by this point, I was starting to feel like it had really sunk in. It wasn't just a jumble of obscure stats anymore, they meant something. Important distinction. When everyone is fed and equipped, the party sets out. Ridley takes the lead as she knows the terrain ahead a bit better. I should note that we're significantly slower now, which we owe to our fresh recruits' low athletics scores. Don't worry, they'd have plenty of road ahead of them to get those glutes working as we set out towards the town of Stoat. Not too far outside of town, we run into a patrol of United City's heroes, and I can already tell this interaction is heading south. The heroes are the Empire's own human supremacist faction, a they-took-our-jobs kind of outfit. They don't seem to like the fact that we're running with a handful of non-humans and are itching for a fight. Thus begins our crew's first decently challenging combat endeavor. The trick to winning bigger team fights seems to be attentiveness. Monitor your matchups. Make sure your best fighters are tackling their best fighters. 2 fighters to an enemy maximum. Swings often go wide and can hit multiple people. Keep an eye on everyone's health and make sure lower level characters are supported by more skilled ones. If you're playing your cards right, bigger fights should play like you're a security guard watching multiple camera feeds at once. You gotta keep an eye on the big picture. Things can happen fast in these fights, so it's good to be on alert with your thumb on the spacebar. Soto, who was facing down the enemy captain, ends up tanking a little too well and is knocked out. Regardless of that, we managed to mop up the stragglers and get to work medicing up the wounded and stripping away enemy weapons and keeping any sufficiently valuable armor. In the aftermath of the fight, Crumblejohn imparts some more wisdom to his younger compatriots.
Oh, my bones hurt. Reach 45 and you'll feel pains you never would have thought even existed.
At first, I was mildly shocked that Crumblejohn managed to hit the ripe age of 45 in a world without hospitals and in such a dangerous profession as soldiering. But when I looked into it a little further, it probably wasn't as uncommon as you might think. In the medieval ages and much of pre-modern history, as long as you made it past infancy, you were generally expected to have a fairly normal lifespan. Shit, if you made it past 25, you were expected to live until you were 50 on average. The article I read even made the observation that that figure is what it is, an average. There were definitely a good number of people who lived decades longer than that. I wasn't even aware that one Byzantine emperor was recorded to have lived until 83. I'm not sure if I would have expected the average lifespan of an emperor to be shorter on account of political rivals or wars, or longer by way of better access to medicine or quality treatment. I guess it's a case-by-case basis, but I'd love to see the macro stats on that. While we're daydreaming, a couple of skimmers start bearing down on our group. We're nearly caught by them, but manage to run them through a local camp of rebels. We make it back in one piece, and I rent some beds at the bar and let everyone get healed up. One by one, the team filters into the common area downstairs, and we're back to 100%. It's around this point that I decided our new recruits could use some training before they set out into the more remote regions of the world. A little time spent training could go a long way in terms of survivability, so I bite the bullet and head back home. How far we've come. This was mostly retreading the same ground and doing some menial home task busy work, so I'll spare you from having to sit through it. I will leave you with this fun little nugget from Crumblejohn, though.
That was a close one. My wife would be worried. Speaking of which, I should probably go find her at some point, really.
What? You got a wife?
Of course. Not a problem, though. You see, we have an open relationship. I'm sure she's found someone else to warm the bed in my absence.
Too much information, old man. Too much information. After 2 in-game days of training, we stock up on another load of goods and head out. Don't worry, this isn't going to turn into me farming this trade route for cats over and over again. Although, I am the type to fall for the classic pitfall of doing simple, repeatable tasks with consistent rewards. Grumble, grumble, trading heavy weapons, grumble, grumble, space trucking. Now, what am I saying? That's boring shit. Oh, man. I sure am being obedient in sticking to my encounter it, talk about it format. Gee, that skeleton off in the distance sure is big. Yeah, I see you guys down there in the comments. We haven't talked about him yet, but that's sort of the magic of a free-form, sandbox open world game. You encounter pieces of the setting in your own order. We're heading over the Spine Canyon now, the ridgeline that separates the skim sands from the deeper Great Desert proper. Not too far from there, Stoat appears through the drifting sands like a mirage. We immediately hit the market and browse around for some new gear. Before long, however, another group of UC heroes starts accosting us in the middle of the square. I get the team ready for a fight, but it seems like these guys were all bark and no bite. Yeah, you better walk away. They must have heard from their friends that Lip's crew doesn't fuck around. Chumbos.
We divvy up our rations and head out again. What the hell is this thing? For some reason, it reminds me of... Wow. Yeah, that's it. I don't think this setting has anti-gravity technology. It's a little harder sci-fi than that. Could be the base of some old space elevator or something. What's this little box in the sand near the center of it? I can't interact with it in any way, but it doesn't seem like debris. It's not buried like the rest of the structure, so it seems more recent. Is this a piece of diagnostic equipment? Maybe somebody was trying to interface with whatever this is. We enter into Bast, an area of craterous badlands on the western border of the Empire. I've heard of this place. A whole city wiped out in a single day by the Holy Nation. They roasted the head noble alive in the name of Okran and carted the youngsters off to rebirth. Yeesh. I mean, I hate the nobles just as much as the next guy, but actually, he probably deserved it. This whole area is... Fucking samurai. They check us for illegal goods, make us kneel to show our allegiance to the United Cities, and try to shake us down. Damn it, they got the numbers and the equipment. They make off with 5,000 of our cats, but in a sublime moment of instant karmic justice, a patrol of cannibals crests the ridge behind us and moves in to engage them. Yeah, you guys really are the brave defenders of the Empire. Go ahead and earn those cats, fellas. We stumble across the ruins of Bast and head inside to check it out. There's evidence of some squatters, but for the most part, it's a ghost town. Those cages were probably here before the Holy Nation attack, but seeing them arrayed out in a line at the site of what must have been a bloody massacre lends a sinister atmosphere to the place. Reminds me of strolling through the ruins of Nipton for the first time. Sleeping under a blanket of stars, says a local hobo. Who needs the UC, right? Right? Bast was the biggest major town in the area, but there seemed to have been a lot of outlying hamlets that depended on its market and administrative presence to stay afloat. This begs the question, how many of these places were destroyed by the Holy Nation, and how many just disintegrated over time? Without a major military installation in the area, raiding cannibal parties from the north have clearly been operating in the region for some time. If you really think about it, this zone had so much potential for growth. Strong material support from the Empire to the east, natural barriers against sandstorms. This is the largest concentration of man-made structures from the current era that we've seen in the game so far. This place had all the necessary foundations to become a proper city. It feels like it had the roots of something vaguely metropolitan. I think that's also apparent in the fact that Bast became the name for the region, not just the town. Language can be a powerful indicator like that. In that way, the breadth of destruction in Bast is kind of staggering. Damn. It's not irregular to find patrols of paladins clashing with patrols of samurai here. Both superpowers still claim sovereignty over this dust bowl, but neither side seems to be able to win a significant victory over the other. Well, would you just look at all that loot on the ground? I have most of the party sneak behind some nearby ruined houses and have the most qualified member of our group, Beep, dart in between the fighters to check the fallen for anything valuable. In another bout of karmic justice, I don't manage to find much of anything. We were looking for good quality gear, but nothing we found is worth its weight. We do manage to make off with a nice hat for Shrike, though. Don't worry, I'm sure Beep shook the brains out of the inside of that before he handed it off. I wonder who ended up coming out on top. We're done with Bast. This whole place is a bit too hot for my liking. Besides, we've got to save our strength for the road ahead. We've got some dangerous territory to cross. We're going to follow the coastline northwest. Everything north of the Arms of Okran mountain ranges is cannibal territory. It's up for debate why the northern human settlements turned cannibalistic. There's a fairly comprehensive machinist theory book on the topic. The Cannibal Plains, De-Evolution of Man. Surveys show that the painted cannibal tribe's existence dates back thousands of years. Whether they existed during or after the northern ancient lab's downfall, we can't yet confirm. Prehistoric and undeveloped tribes existing in a land of such advanced science is clearly backward. Are the inhabitants of the Cannibal Plains devolving? Without knowing whether there was an overlap in the existence of the two civilizations, we could assume that the cannibals are in fact direct descendants of the ancient inhabitants. Their degeneration could be put down to toxic environmental factors which they were unable to adapt to, damaging substances from their very own labs, induced madness from experiments gone wrong, or simply being reduced to cannibalism due to severe famine. However, if there was in actuality an overlap in habitation, it's highly possible that the advanced ancient inhabitants were invaded and killed by spreading or migrating cannibals. A perfect instance of survival of the fittest. Some of the weaponry and internal damages found within the labs indicate an alternate possibility of internal civil war, although the damage could be the result of simple cannibal quarrels after their occupation. I do have some ideas on which of those two theories clicks more for me, but again, I think it'll have to wait. The construction of Kenshi's story is built in a way where a good number of the questions posed throughout the narrative are answered in some fashion near the end of the game. We can talk a little bit about cannibalism in general, though. I'll go out on a limb here and say that the type of cannibalism being practiced by the painted tribes is exocannibalism, which is when your culture regularly eats people outside of your community. Seeing as there's multiple tribes in the north at war with one another, plus they seem to raid south regularly enough, and yeah, there's different delineations for different types of cannibalism. I guess that makes sense. Eating the meat of somebody you're sacrificing for ritualistic purposes is different enough from eating Jimmy's dead body on the raft because he's the one that drew the shortest straw. The reasoning behind eating who you're eating can come from very different places. What's interesting here is that human meat seems to be these guys' main food source. I can't really find much evidence on real-world populations that use cannibalism as their sole form of sustenance. Rather, it was usually used for ritualistic purposes or as a form of punishment for the warriors who lost a conflict between tribes. The fact that these cannibals only eat human meat could lend some legitimacy to the test subject theory. It might be the result of some form of psychological conditioning, but whether or not something like that could persist down through generations is probably up in the air. Maybe their brain chemistry has been altered on some genetic level to hate the idea of eating anything but human meat. It is the future. Science might have come far enough in the setting to propagate something like that. I guess these guys could be eating and killing local fauna, and the idea that they're exclusively cannibalistic could be a southern Alkranite sort of assumption about these people, but it would be pretty hard to prove that without observing their practices for an extended period of time. I don't think anybody from the machinists or the tech hunters is interested in undertaking that particular scientific endeavor. I'm certainly not. As we're navigating our way up the shoreline, occasionally glancing over our shoulders, we stumble across an abandoned campsite. There's no bodies or belongings on the ground. That's eerie. Up there on the cliff face is World's End, the headquarters of the machinists and a major outpost of the tech hunters. We'll try to visit there on our way back. Just up ahead, we spot a small gathering of structures surrounded by a wall. Is there really a village this far north? That'd take some real balls to pull off. This is the fishing hamlet, a secluded, independent town. It's the last civilized settlement we'll be seeing for a while. You, ma'am, look at my fish. Come on, you guys love fish, says the fisherman. It's true, says Beep. The town is controlled by a faction called Dead Cat. From what you can gather about them, you can see that a good number of the recent ruins in the area used to belong to them. Catalog that one for later. We get to talking to Mao, the bartender in town. Always a good idea to ask about local tips. Careful of the painted tribe. They roam outside of the village and pick off unfortunate travelers that stray too far from town. They eat away at their victims piece by piece while keeping them prisoner in their lair. Oh man, have you guys seen Bone Tomahawk? Ugh. We also meet a Scorchlander named Green Finger. Oh, you have no idea how hard it is to run a farm when there's a bloody horde of cannibals licking their lips and waiting to devour you from just over the hill. Guess how many farmers have died in the last week? Just guess. It irks me so bad when people ask questions like that. I get that you're making a point, but just give me the info. Don't make me play a little game first. I have no idea. No one damn well knows. They gave up keeping count. We found about 7 chewed up remains up in the hills this week alone. Whether those body parts were from the same person or 7 different bodies, I'll be damned. A farmer can't work in a place like this, I tell you. Okay, we can't afford to feed him at the moment, nor do we need a slow rookie to accompany us. But hey, we could use this guy. It pays to keep skilled people around. We'll remember him for when we decide to settle down. Stay right here. We'll be back in a month or 2. We pick up an extra sleeping bag at the travel shop in town and begin the last and most perilous leg of our journey. You can't actually tell just by looking at the game, but I've just made use of one of Kenshi's most underrated features: importing your save. Have you ever been playing a mod-friendly RPG for a while, then find a mod that would fit great in your list, only then to be inconvenienced by the fact that it would totally brick your save file if you added it in? Then there's that nagging trolley problem of, do I nuke my save and restart from scratch to get this playthrough-altering mod in place, or just continue on in this doomed world I've created, forever haunted by the knowledge that I'm no longer playing the ideal version of my game? It's like gamer FOMO, just with an imaginary version of yourself that's frolicking through mod-filled immersive flower fields while you just get to stare at plain old grass. Anyway, fuck Skyrim. I put 800 hours in. Kenshi cuts that Gordian knot right in half by adding a way to import the data from your game to a technically fresh save. Things like world states, who's in your party, where are we on the world map, etc., etc. It's super modular and lets you change all these parameters before you do it. You can install city overhaul mods, import your save, and not have the game collapse in on itself like a dying star. Good God, I could kiss the Lo-Fi Games devs on the mouth for this. Best game, best studio, 10 out of 10 on IGN. Fuck Todd Howard. We're not too far out from the fishing village when we spot what looks like another settlement. The structures are intact and the windmill generators are still running, but there's nobody home. Cups and jugs of grog are laid out like people had been here moments ago and left unexpectedly. That's not suspect at all. We start rifling through drawers and pocketing anything valuable. In one of these barrels, we uncovered a diary entry scribbled on a scap of paper. Walls are up, buildings have been fortified, no holy nation or empire to tell us what to do. Just a couple of dumb cannibal tribes, nothing we can't handle. Well, he didn't see Bone Tomahawk. It's about asymmetrical warfare, ambush tactics, man. Soda and Ridley start kicking in doors and clearing rooms. Before long, we find another journal page. Minid and Petal were the last to disappear. Probably ran away together in some passionate elopement. Then we've got Recon, Bones, and Wesley. My guess is they got lost in the hills, scavenging for green fruits. Yeah, we know how this ends. As I'm chiding this guy and having a good sensible chuckle about it, an absolute avalanche of cannibals comes streaming down the hillside at us. Aw yeah, nice move, dude. Standing around shaking your head derisively in the middle of a ghost town. Dumbass. Alright, quick. Cut and run. Most of them are distracted fighting some wildlife over there. Leave the excess loot behind. It's time to Shit! They're covering both sides. I'm boxed in.
I'm boxed in! This is bullshit! I don't deserve this type of scrutiny. I saw Bone Tomahawk, goddammit!
Okay, those ninjas are putting up a good fight down there, but they're fading fast. We'd have a better chance of living by throwing our numbers in with them. Lip, Ridley, Hugh, and Beep deal with the stragglers behind us, and everyone else gets stuck in the main fight. Damn, they almost managed to carry off one of those guys. We turn the tables on them pretty quick, and it seems like the larger group of cannibals hasn't followed us down here. We give a quick nod to the party of ninjas, heal up, and move on. You may be asking yourself why we wasted the time and effort to help those guys. Why intervene? Well, I'd imagine it would be like not answering a distress signal on a deep space voyage. You'd like for somebody to do the same for you. You gotta operate on an honor code with things like this. All in all, we actually managed to restock our rations a bit, pick up some loose grog, and get some combat XP in. I'd say that pit stop was worth it in the end. Up in the hills above us, some tribals are moving in quite a large group. They're not painted like the rest of the cannibals. Have they really not spotted us? Are they just sizing us up? They don't press us, and we're not inclined to engage them. What? Did you see that? Up ahead, I'm sure I saw something. It's just the wind. Relax. Stay off the hashish a while, eh? Fumin, I know you're new to this, but Shrike's got the right idea. Paranoia is a virtue on the road. Out here, you're only paranoid if you're wrong. The tribals track us for a while longer, but they seem to move on. They're moving pretty erratically, so who knows if they'll come back this way. Up the coast a bit, our fortunes take a turn as we find another ruin. One of those ruined armories, too, like the one Beep managed to find way back in the Deadlands. Something in the back of my mind tells me this is going a little too smoothly, so I swivel the camera around to check our surroundings. That's when I notice those tribals from earlier are back. Shit, how long have they been right behind us for? They start screaming various bits of onomatopoeia back there, and they're actually gaining ground on us. A cursory glance at their faction reveals that they're called Shrieking Bandits. Wait a minute. We've read about these guys. Tech Hunter notes, Shrieking Forest. Swimmer. I found the Shrieking folk to be simply misunderstood nomads. My attempts to communicate seemed to calm them down, and they continued on their way, screaming merrily as they ran. EO. I believe these people have been the victims of some kind of horror and become unhinged. Their minds are broken. They are violent and feral. That is all that can be said for sure. Anonymous. Don't follow Dr. Swimmer's advice. That's how our last captain got stabbed. Trep. That place was hilarious. They're not marked as hostile, and their leader is trying to flag us down with the button prompt that communicates someone trying to talk to us. They're trying to communicate. Alright, Lip. First contact. Oh god. Okay, this is one bit I don't think I'm going to have to commit to. Headphone users, you're safe. I'm not screaming. It might seem stupid, but there was actually a methodology to the dialogue options I chose in this interaction. I didn't Google this encounter before it happened. I raw dogged it, so let's try and break this down. Okay, the initial question. That very clearly says me. Is she introducing herself? Definitely not dialogue options 2 or 3. We've got to respond in their language. Options 1 and 5 read as aggressive and cold, respectively. Get it? Brr is like a cold thing to say. Does option 4 say Haya, as in hello? At the very least, it seemed to match Gaia, which is what she said at the end of her phrase, so we picked it. Her immediate response is shriek, eek, ah, and then a big yell at the end, which you might regard as aggressive, but these people are the shrieking bandits. I think she's identifying me as one of them. Okay, well then the next thing out of her mouth is one of those generic whoops that they seem to do as they run. So, this is a slam dunk. Just play along. Fleek even kind of evokes flee, as in, let's move on. The band washes over our group in a wave, screaming as they go. What a strange subculture. It might be me reaching, but I think there's a level of method to this madness. They're a little over the top, but these guys are coherent. They can be reasoned with. Swimmer had the right idea. Those other jokers in the Tech Hunter notes just couldn't hang, I guess. Pfft, academics. This encounter does remind us how deep we're in here, though. This is not a place to be taken lightly. We get the crew inside the ruin and have them all sneak to avoid drawing unwanted attention. By this point, you may have noticed the giraffe-like creatures roaming in packs in this area. These are one of Kenshi's premier enemies. Beak things. Also called gutters, probably for their propensity for maiming and eating anything they come across. Remember how we were talking about all tomorrows a little while ago? Well, pay no mind to their human-like facial features, five-toed appendages, or re-evolved tail, or to the fact that we're finding them in the areas of the map proposed by the top historians of this age to be the site of mass experimentation that resulted in the possible test subjects of it to trend towards eating human flesh. The longer you look at these things, the more familiar features you start to notice on them. Oh God. This is some high-quality body horror right here. But the scarier part is just how deadly these things are. They've got AoE attacks, are much faster than you think they are, and rove in groups. Everybody just stay right where you are. Don't move a muscle. A group of cannibals tries their luck with the gutters and are torn limb from limb. Before long, rogue Shek berserkers come stumbling along to die gloriously against them too. This place is a fucking madhouse. It makes Bast look like a slap fight. These are the real killing fields. Man, I wonder what the writers were trying to say about the nature of man with this area. After the heat dies down a bit, we send Beep and Crumblejohn around with backpacks to grab up all these tech goodies on the ground. This is where it pays to be quick and aware of your surroundings. If anything gets remotely close to our runners, we duck them back inside. After a minute or two of careful looting, we've cleaned the site to a good degree. The most valuable stuff is resting in our backpacks and we are ready to leave. At this point, the fighting around us is reaching a fever pitch. Squads of berserkers are barking challenges at anyone and anything that gets too close to them. In the distance, I can make out what looks like two rival cannibal clans clashing. All the while, beak things stand triumphant over the bloodied corpses of their prey, feasting freely and eagerly. We are far from the apex predators here. I wait until there's an opening in the fighting and try to stealthily get everyone out back the way we came. The setting sun does us some favors as we get away from the bulk of the fighting. After we're a good distance away, we book it. We sprint past an injured cannibal or two. They drag broken limbs behind them, too spent from the fighting to risk making any kind of move against us. Night starts to fall as we put the madness behind us. The mood of the caravan is tense and silent as we trek past familiar landmarks. We dodge a handful of fresh cannibal hunting parties as we work our way back towards civilization. As we arrive back within the meager walls of the fishing village, everyone's limbs slacken. Lip lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding in. Before we get to the last bit of notes, I'd like to just say a fond thank you to our wonderful supporters on the Patreon. Thank you to Ben Couch, Minty Pie, Thomas Bomber, Empire Doom, Interesting Squirrel, Galbatrix, Original Peter, Trench Gun, Eggs and Toast, Jadovsky History, Ethan, Jesse Watson, Victor Sales, Daniel Sotoshiniski, Reg Show Guy, Alfarius Omegon, Joseph McClelland, Top Goose, Teeth, Braden King, Tsar Nicholas II, and Seamus Folan. First, I'll do my due diligence of updating our travel map here. There you go. Another chunk of the map explored. So another episode bites the dust. I guess I'll also address the elephant in the room in that this video is a bit late. I took a handful of days off towards the beginning of the month and then I ended up getting sick with the flu for like a week. I wasn't feeling well enough to get back in the saddle until like halfway through the month, but hey, we got there in the end. At the time of writing and recording this one, I hope to have the video out sometime around Christmas, hopefully before, so that can be like a nice little holiday treat. Another fun fact, I've discovered recently that I've been rendering these videos out at a much, much lower bitrate than they were originally recorded in. This resulted in a bit of confusion on my part as to the difference in quality between the video as I replayed it and in the final render. What can I say? I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. I'm self-taught, so these technical issues are going to come up. I hope that at the time of editing this, I fixed that little chestnut, and that way this video is uploaded in a much more readable state. Less pixelation and blurring of, distant objects. Oh, and I'll render out previous episodes of the series again before they end up in the final cut. Very nice. But that's it for this one, folks. I hope you're all having a happy and healthy holiday season, and if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye. You know what sucks? I haven't gotten to use a red versus blue clip in like 2 whole videos.
Hey dude, it's Vic. No solo mio, not in the casa right now, so leave a message and I'll call you back. Just leave your what's up at the Yo.